Hey guys, today we're talking about the 4 types of introverts. I was kind of inspired to do this after talking to Sherman from Geek Psychology when we were kind of analyzing our FI and I different types of introversion. And I was thinking, well, there are like 4 different types of introverts with like different cognitive functions, yet we tend to lump introversion into like this one singular thing. So I wanted to talk today about how there are actually like 4 different types of introversion and how we can like identify them.
Yeah, I have like nothing to add to this. So I think we're gonna begin with FI and then go towards like NI. Or I don't know, that's how I wrote down my notes. Well, to start off with, I thought we would do like the judging functions first. So how to spot the FI type of introvert, which is, I guess, INFPs and ISFPs. So I think actually FI introverts are kind of easy to spot because they tend to have like some sort of unique style. Usually this does manifest in like dressing and like even, you know, how you put your makeup on or like lack thereof. But then there could also be like life choices or circumstances. If you asked about their past, they might really like to highlight the weird things that they've done or just unconventional life choices that they've made. Also, you can try to look for hints of bottled up emotion. Like if you get the sense that there's so many things going on inside on an emotional sense, but then they're not exactly emoting in a conventional way for everyone to understand what it is that they're feeling, that could be a sign of FI.
Yeah, so the way I saw that is like both introverted perceiver types who actually have an introverted judging function. They can come off a little bit more bubbly than the other 2 introverted types because they do have that extroverted perceiving function. And they generally seem kind of more open to the external world and more open to possibilities. So for the FI Dom, I think they kind of approach the world by exploring things that have personal meaning or value to them. So I think this makes them kind of noticeably sensitive and receptive to the world. And you can kind of usually see that like in their introverted moments, I think they're processing things kind of in a way that you can tell that like it has like a lot of personal meaning to them, and you can kind of usually like see expressions of like of subdued emotion on their face, not the same kind of emotion that an extroverted feeler will project, but you can tell they're like processing things internally.
Another thing, along with a unique style that FI people tend to do, is like a sudden burst of like a very strong opinion, but with like a lack of corresponding emotion. Like they might drop like a bomb and like, oh, I think abortion is horrible. Or yeah, like they would say something that's controversial, but then they would say it without any sort of emotion. And then like going along with that, I think they tend to be totally fine with expressing about things that they like or dislike and have that be like the be all and end all. Not that they're not capable of analysis, but they don't tend to think that analyzing like or justifying why they like or dislike something is necessary, although they could do that.
Yeah, I also kind of thought of like the 4 types of introverts. Introversion is kind of like a detachment from the external world in a sense, so I felt like, okay, every introvert type is probably detached in a different way. So I think FI users are detached from things that they just don't care about or don't see value in. And they're just like, nope, like nope, totally removed from that. I don't care.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, generally with both introverted perceivers, they have like this live and let live attitude. So tend to be like totally okay with glossing over disagreements as long as it doesn't infringe upon like individual rights. Introverted thinking introverts. So what I came up with is that they can also stand out in appearance in terms of like not dressing how people conventionally dress, but instead of it being like a self-expression thing, it's more like function over form. I think introverted thinkers, they tend to have like a system for everything in life. I think that one person on YouTube said that actually TE is effectiveness and TI is efficiency, and I've started to like understand this because when you systemize things in your life, it becomes more efficient. Okay, like for example, I know an INTP girl who for every day of the week, she has a designated outfit. So she has like these 7 outfits in her closet that are on rotation. And then she says she does this so she doesn't have to decide, like she doesn't have to waste time any day to decide what she's wearing.
TI users will be perceivers, or TI dominant users will be perceivers. And so again, they can be kind of like, have a more open attitude towards the world, can kind of have moments of bubbliness. But I think the openness here is open to exploring systems. So this can be kind of like open to exploring like scientific things, or more like mechanical systems, or like computer technology, or, you know, these sorts of things. But I think they'll be kind of gravitating towards things that they can analyze. And because they have this dominant mode of like analysis, on the outside, they can be, I think, the most stoic of personality types. They can seem very kind of cool and relaxed and kind of emotionally detached and very kind of calm and serene at the same time. Not saying that they don't experience emotions, just from the outside, that's kind of how they come off.
Yeah, okay, so I also agree that, like, since they don't really have FI, there's kind of this lack of emotional desire to, like, do a bunch of stuff, and then, like, their FE is also low, so they're kind of unaffected by emotional atmosphere, and this kind of manifests in, like, leading a very efficient and minimalistic life when they're free from external pressures. Like, if people just let the TI DOMs be, they tend to, like, have very few possessions. It's because their key motivation is just to understand and make sense of everything. And there's, like, in no part of this process is it required to, like, get status or objects or anything. Okay, so then their intense focus on, like, what makes sense and applying this to the world to, like, understand the world. They can often apply this to the emotional realm, which is, like, really funny. Like, I have this ISTP friend that sometimes when I'm, like, super heartbroken or whatever, I'm, like, complaining about this guy maybe, and then she would just, after, like, listening to my rant, she would be like, oh, you can take a nap and then drink a glass of water. And I'm just like, oh my god, I know that's technically true, but that was, like, the least helpful thing you could have said at this moment, even though it is true.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so then going along the kind of theme of introverts are detached from things, I think kind of like what you're saying, that TI users are detached kind of from, like, this realm of extroverted feeling. So they can be kind of detached from, like, people or, like, other people's emotions, or these sort of, like, social norms which we engage in. And they can also be very attached from things that they can't analyze. Like, if they don't see any sort of, like, you know, logical depth to, like, some sort of topic or situation, they probably just won't care about it at all.
Okay, so next we have the perceiving functions, and starting with SI introverts. I think this is, like, probably pretty easy to see because they're the SJs. Okay, so you want to look for an adherence to either or all of social, cultural, and gender roles. I know this is stereotypical, but it tends to be true. Like, they tend to follow tradition, sometimes religion, but not always. They tend to have, like, a really good attention to detail and neatness. So with the thinkers, they tend to have this, like, their home being very efficiently neat, and with the SI feelers, they tend to have their homes, like, very sentimentally neat, like keeping things such as notebooks and stationery, like, all very well organized. You can also watch out for repetitive demeanors, like either, you know, maybe they have, like, a favorite restaurant and they just keep going to this one restaurant, or some more generalized routine, like a day-to-day routine. They tend to schedule their time a lot, which is kind of funny because people always say, like, the NI people are the big planners for the future, but the SI people really plan it out, like, incrementally, and they really designate kind of, like, every minute of their time. Yeah, so having high SI, they have, like, an excellent grasp of their language functions. They tend to be really quick with their words, and I think this is why sometimes, like, SJs think that they're NFP, because they're like, oh yeah, because they do tend to be, like, really good at writing and really precise with their use of language. Oh, one of the biggest telltale signs is that although SE users, like, also can talk about the past in vivid detail, SI users will, like, recount the past in vivid detail, but attach every detail of the past to some sort of personal meaning or interpretation.
Yeah, okay, so now we're moving on to the introverted judgers who have their dominant function as a perceiving type. So I think kind of contrasting with the dominant judging type, who just may decide to remove themselves from situations because it doesn't align with like what they think is valuable or what they think is logical. I think the perceiver types just need processing time, and that's kind of the main cause of their introversion, is that they have to kind of see reality through this perception filter of their kind of constructs in their head, and that kind of takes like some buffering time. For SI, I think they process like little snippets of reality. So I think it doesn't take as long to process as NI, but you will still see that they are kind of quiet and in their heads and probably thinking things over. But I do agree that when they do talk, they do have like very good usage of language. I think both judging types are kind of more particular, can be more serious in their demeanor, and can kind of maybe have like dry humor sometimes, I see, with like both SI and NI types.
The introverted perceivers have wet humor.
So SI types are very knowledgeable, I find. The SI DOMs especially. They will just, they'll have like stores and stores of information in their head, and they can, construct these analysis with like very thorough, detailed information. But they can be very sentimental because all of their memories and experiences have these very personal associations to them. Okay, so I think they're detached from like either discussions or like types of like media, maybe like music or TV shows that that have too many random tangents that aren't like connected to anything real or anything probably in their SI store of personal associations that they can't make any attachment to. So I think that makes them that's where they get that traditionalism that they just tend to seek out things that they already know works for them or they've already experienced before, and might be detached from like new possibilities or things that they just can't associate with their past experience.
Yeah, and like experiences that have worked for other people as well. Sometimes I tell SI DOMs like ideas, and then they're like, well, no one else has ever done this. I don't see how this could ever work because, like, look, this person tried it and it didn't work. I'm like, no, but they weren't me, though. I'm me. Okay, moving on to the NI DOMs. This is kind of interesting because I think FI DOMs are known as the dreamers, but I do think that in terms of, like, looking like they're freaking detached from reality, the NI people win in this case. Because they kind of naturally like look into the future, but it's not really like this planning every detail of the future. It's just kind of this intuitive sense of knowing what's gonna happen, kind of like forecasting. And usually, like, the INFJ will have these like intuitive hunches about humans and relationships and feeling domain, and then like the INTJs tend to like forecast is like, I don't know, something else, like something more logical. Okay. But this whole like forecasting thing and the low SE combined makes them kind of out of this moment. So it's very hard for like the NI DOMs to be in the moment, and you can see this in their gaze even. They're kind of like looking off into the far distance, and then when they speak there's usually a lag or a stall because they're trying to like tether specific words to all these like abstract like imagery in their minds. So I think that's how you can see it in NI DOM.
Yeah, okay. So again, they're like their dominant function is perceiving, so that makes that introversion due to like, needing processing time. And unlike the SI user, who's probably processing like all these specific instances as they go, NI is processing patterns. So I think it just takes time for NI users to actually see trends and patterns of things, and this is probably why it takes longer for us to process. And I think also we see things like through the filter of our NI construct. So we're not participating in real time and living in the moment. We're constantly trying to fit in this like SE experience into like some part of our NI construct and trying to figure out where it fits. So I think we're probably the slowest to speak out of all the types because this processing in our heads kind of takes some time. And yeah, our inner world is kind of envisioning various aspects of like imaginary futures, or maybe playing out SE scenarios in our head before we actually like do it in reality. So I think what NI DOMs are detached from is from experiences that they see as pointless. So sort of any like
that's so
any SE
accurate. Oh my gosh.
Any sort of SE experience where they're like, oh, okay, I already know enough about that I don't need to do it, or it's like, oh, I have no interest in that won't inform my NI in like any way, so like I'm just not going to do it.
Like the other type of IJs, they can be a bit quiet and have this more serious air about them. And I don't know, since I talked about fashion for whatever reason for FI and TI, I do want to mention that for some reason, I don't really know why, but maybe like because of SE and because like they're a perceiver first, I think that NI introverts, they tend to like appear physically like they do belong in this era and this general society, so they're kind of like on trend in that sense, but not in a very specific way as their SI counterparts are. They follow like specific trends. The NI just generally look like they belong in this society, but for some reason, like FI and TI, they tend to like dress totally like they're off in this own la la land. And seriously, I don't know if that's like a judging versus perceiving first function thing, but that is a trend that I've noticed.
Yeah, I can see that actually. And you're right, I do think SI users can actually like latch on to like these very specific trends and enjoy them. And yeah, I think NI users kind of, you probably, or at least NI dominant users, you probably won't, like they won't catch your eye.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with that. Like it can be super like aesthetically pleasing, but it won't be like out of the ordinary. Maybe also because they're low SC, like I wouldn't see why they would want to super stand out from the crowd and have all this intention on them, so it kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys found those 4 types of introverts helpful to you, and let us know if you agree with what we said and if this helps you like identify people in your life as these types of introverts.
Oh yeah, let us know if you want us to do the 4 types of extroverts, SE, NE, TE, and FE, because that will also be like super fun. Thanks for watching and hope to see you next time.